The 1960s was a decade that covered a vast amount of looks and feelings. You've got the very dressed look, women were more at work like they were at the end of the 50s. And then you move into that radical period of like flower power towards the end, long hair, just hanging loose, etc., etc. But the dressing of hair, like the 50s, still included that back combing. We're going to go through a bunch of different looks for this period. What we're going to do first of all here is like a French twist, French pleat, whatever you want to call it. It's got that wrap over at the back. There was a lot of variations to the front and also the styling of the hair. And we'll go through several of those over different videos. But what I want to do is basically the basic French twist for you now. And I'm going to do it straight from the hair as it stands. So I'm not going to set it up. With some of the other looks we will, because they will have more of a formal feeling. But if you want to do this quickly, you need to just get it done. I want to show you that it's not that hard to do and still get that period feeling to it. So the back combing, which we've spoken about before, is always quintessential to making sure this lasts. And the back combing needs to go into the root. We've spoken about using it through the ends of the hair so that we can smooth it over and widen the hair. For here, it's basically packing it down so that we can get that lift. I'm taking a far side parting because that was quite popular at the time. These would either have lift in them or you would bring them down and bring them flat across the forehead. I have a fringe area here so I can incorporate that into the look. Whenever you're building lift, you're either going to do it right the way through the look or you're going to choose a point, and it'll always be forward of crown. If you think about it, from the crown back, hair is sitting backwards, so you're not going to see it. Anything you want to lift needs to sit more forward. So I'm going to come forward of the crown, leave this front area out. So if you look at the side, we're basically in front of the ear, really, just as a guided area as to what we're going to do. So once you've chosen that area, I'm just going to come into the top and I'm going to choose my first section for back combing. Keep it nice and clean across, and so my first section is literally going to be through the center. If I had set this first, obviously I'm going to have the extra bounce and lift into it, but the reason I'm doing it like this is, one, to show you it can just be done, and two, you can get a lot of people done quite quickly. You know, if it was for again a fashion show or backstage for something, you can just get this done. I'm getting some hairspray into the hair, and then as always I'm back combing in to the root. So what I want to do, I'll pull forward a little bit because that will give me the extra lift. If you put a roller in, you'd normally roll onto base, which means that you're going to pull this to that point and roll back. That will give you that extra lift, but I can get that just by back combing it in. I'm taking more than my normal 4 because it is a 60s do and I do want to give it that lift. So there you have it. As I've always said, and I'll say over and over, when you put your comb in, you can feel the back combing at the root. If you can't feel it at the root, then you haven't done enough. I'm going to come into the side area, and I'm almost bricking this like you would if you were putting rollers in, but I'm just doing it to get the back combing in. So again, let's get that back combing down. As long as it's into the root, then you're okay. I'm moving across to the middle of the back, and I'm going to continue. So all we're doing is building up the shape. You want to get this firmly in because obviously this is either going to last a full session if a model is walking, it's going to work a full set if someone is either in theatre or in a movie, and if it's a bride or someone like that, it's got to last the whole day. So whichever way you look at it, this has to last through. So you want to make sure that's packed down and close in. We've been through this several times before, but all you're doing is holding the hair gently in the hand, combing down, and what it does, it barbs the hair. Hair naturally has the cuticle, which will hold on to itself as you push down. So all we're doing is just getting that to hold on to itself. There's softer versions of this which are around today, but because this is a period look, you want to be as authentic as you can to make sure you get that volume and the look that you would have had at the time. As you go into the nape or the bottom of the hair, make sure that the back combing goes in, and you can do a little on the underneath. And the reason is because when we put our pins in, we want to make sure there's back combing at the bottom, or else it could tend to slide around. As you can see, the volume's building up now, so I'm just going to put a clip in here so that I can get to the underneath and get these last couple of sections done. If you've got shorter hair, like a bob length, as I've said before, you can still do a French twist on it, but then you might use a hair piece on the top to finish the look and make it look more full. You can do the same on this side, so all I'm doing is lifting the hair that we've already backcombed out of the way, and then I can backcomb into the root. Okay, isn't that lovely? So, I'm popping some hairspray through the whole thing. And now I'm going to use my boar's bristle brush to smooth out the top and the sides, because I've got that back combing in there now, so I'm just smoothing the sides so you don't see that back combing coming through. And I haven't back combed the front yet, we're just working on the top. And now I'm going to look at what height I want. So according to how much 60s volume I want, I'm going to lift this. You can use a mirror or you can step round to the front and just look at how that's lifting. And then once you've decided on your length, you're going to draw down from basically the temple area, pull this hair in. Okay, so I'm using that skinny finger, my tail comb, to hold that. Then I'm pushing up. Can you see? So I'm just sliding that to guide myself. I'm pushing it up with my hand, and then I'm just holding that in. So what I'm going to do now, whether you want to use, according to the volume of the hair, the thickness of the hair, the circumference of the scalp, you'll either use a large pin or a small pin. It's really up to you. But I'm going to slide this in and slide that along. Okay? Now I'm going to just quite simply do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm just pulling that in, making sure my height looks okay from the front, and I'm cross pinning. In fact, I do this with a blonde pin, so you can actually see, because the dark one is obviously what I would normally use, but this way you can see it a little bit more. So I'm just putting that pin across. They're now cross pinned across each other. And as I said before as well, if you feel these are going to slide, you can take another pin and you can anchor the two by going across the two. So now you've got your two pins, and now that's completely locked. That's not going to move. It's a great way to make sure that the security is there and the hair is going to hold its place. From here on in, you've got your basics of your shape. So now I'm going to use my bristle brush again, and I'm going to pull this around. I'm just going to take that little bit from the front away. Wouldn't really make too much difference because this is actually going to sweep back afterwards, but I might as well keep it as clean as possible. Just pop your head down a little bit. That's great. So now you can see I'm just bringing all the hair from the back over. So nothing crazy. We did our shape to that area, so now all this area is clean, and so now as I bring this across, it's just going to blend. So I'm pulling that across. I'll use light pins again so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to put a pin through the center, so you're working on the nape of the neck and you're working to the center. You can work just off center if you don't want your pleat to be centralized. If you wanted it more to one side, then you put the pins more to one side, but I'm working through the center. So there's my first pin. As you put that first pin in, let me do that again. As you put this first pin in, make sure all the hair is up and slide the pin along the scalp and then slide it in. I'll smooth this with my brush, so now I can just use my comb. You can see I just want to make sure that all that hair is above the pin, because we want to lock these together as we've done with many of our looks before. So I'll just grab another bobby pin or grip, open it up, use my finger to hold this one, put in and then slide up. So now you can see that's locked together. I can push them closer together, but what it's done is my ends, look, they're all tightly in there now, and the same for the second pin because it's now holding and it's locked. I'm going to take another pin, and again, according to the length of this shape or how high you've made this, will be 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 pins, and then you'll be at the end of that. So I'm just going to comb that little bit of back comb you can see there, and now I'm going to do the same as we did in the top. I'm going to lock this down. So I'm just going to bring a pin, and again I'll stick with light ones so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to lock this down over the other one. So now I've locked everything together. If you wanted to cross pin that like we did there, that's fine. I don't really think I'm going to need to. If you want some volume here, just pull this out at this stage, because now you can see how the shape's sitting. And now you're going to go to the opposite side. And I'm going to pull this over. I'll show you this from 2 angles just so you can see what I'm doing, so that you don't think it's rocket science. It's very easy. I'm just going to pull this over. So all I'm doing is exactly the same. Let's grab that little bit to do with the back. Okay, doing exactly the same again. Look, pulling this over. It already matches because we've got that area there. So I'm just pulling this over. Make sure, just use the end of your brush just to make sure everything's nice and clean and smooth. And then we can pull that over. So there you go. Okay, so that's that side. You can see I've done exactly the same as we did before. The reason I've shown you that is because sometimes it looks as if that can't be that easy, and it really is. So now you've pulled that over. This was your first side. This is your second side. Now you've got all your hair over this side. Use your hand just to hold the hair. You're cradling it. As I always say with long hair, if it doesn't go right first time, drop it down, start again. You haven't cut anything, you haven't colored anything. All you're doing is putting hair up. So have the confidence just to play around and get it the way you want it to be. So here we go. We've pulled the hair over. And now I'm just going to lift the hair. So think of when people, but mainly when women with long hair are in the shower. What do? You twist it and get it out the way. For the hair, what you're going to do is you're going to twist it and get it out the way. You're twisting it, get it out the way, and then I'm going to twist it again, because what I want to do is tighten this shape up a little. Okay, again, the skinny finger or the tail comb is just going to tuck those ends under. Now what I'm going to do here, a lot of people will use a grip or a bobby pin for holding the hair. I much prefer hairpins. Bobby pins and grips will tend to be bulky. They'll hold it well because they grip. That's the nature of the beast. But with a hairpin, they will actually hold and you don't see them as much. So what I'm going to do is we're working into the fat area of the hair, which is the pleat you've just built. We're going to put the hair in, the pin, into that side of the hair. And then I'm going to turn it and release it. And what that'll do, I'll just use another pin to show you. If I put this in and see, can you see, look at the spring on this. It's like a bullet. It just like, because you're holding it. So the spring in that is making this fat area submit to the thin area here where you've got the line of bobby pins. So we're going to put the pin in. You're going to turn it and then slide it in. And even now, with one pin, it's holding the shape because it's anchoring it. So now I can afford the freedom of taking the rest of my pins and just beginning to close the shape down. And just build that up. And in the bottom, we can see a little bit of looseness there. You can see the pin, because I remember I used the light ones. So just twist that again. Let's get a pin. And the great thing is you can look at the shape that you're building. And you can go, okay, I'll pull that over. There's my pin. Over and up. And what that does is it closes it down. It covers the pin. And everything is nice and clean. So continue to work up with that. Now, top. You can either use this and you make it into curls or waves, or you can hide this inside the shape that you've already built. So all I'm going to do is turn that hair over in the top. Again, very popular at the time. And I'm just going to use a bobby pin or two just to hold that down. Just makes a nice, clean shape. Another hairpin. As I say, I'm really liking these dull-edged hairpins where you're not seeing so much shine, because they really do help that matteness so you don't see them sticking out with the hair shape. So again, as I say quite often, hopefully you'll find yourselves fairly quickly we can start building a shape, and then you can vary it as you see fit. So we're just going to put a little bit of back combing into the side. You don't want a lot into this area. It's just to give you a little bit of lift. We're keeping this fairly smooth, which is true to the period. And so I'm just going to pull this back. It's a classic look. You could use it still today for proms or weddings with just slight variations. But what we're going to do is stick with a fairly true version here. So here we are pulling this back into the back area. So you can see it blends quite nicely with the areas that we've already established in the back. I'm going to pull this over and I'm just going to twist it around. Which means I can tuck these ends under, you can see. So all I did, in case you didn't catch that, I've pulled it, I've twisted it around my finger, okay? And then I can tuck these ends under the initial shape, and then I'm just going to use a bobby pin to secure that. And you're securing into this nice sort of tubby backcombed area, so you'll be able to do that quite nicely. You can just anchor with a couple of pins as you see fit. We're going to go through to the opposite side, and again, now you choose. I mean, I've got a slight lift in this hair, so I'm going to probably keep with that. Just check my front shape. As I'm not working with a mirror, I want to make sure that I've got a nice evenness to that. So here we are again. Let's just pop a little back combing, but I'm doing it, look, on the underneath because I wanted to keep this as flat as possible. So again, whenever you're back combing, back brushing, you're doing it to guide the hair. It's like a potter with a potter's wheel. You're saying, I want this over there, I want that over there, I want this forward, I want this back. And so you're guiding with your fingers and your positioning of your back brushing or back combing as to how the hair is going to sit. Each period of history, as we've said before, has certain things that are used more regularly, whether it be flowers, feathers, ribbons, bands. And so a lot of the looks I'll do fairly plain. But if you look up your history points, you can see like 40s flowers were really big, magnolias and gardenias and things in the hair. in the 60s, hairbands and headbands were very popular, and feathers in the 1800s, 1900s, very popular. So you'll find different things at different times. Sometimes there was so much hair that you didn't actually have to add anything else, but I'm sure you've seen some of those that we've done already. So here we go, just pulling this back. The front's dropping away, which is the shorter area, that's fine. I'm coming in with the longer area from the front here now. Just going to pop a couple of pins on so that I can work this. And you can see we're just pulling that up and over. So now I'm going to cross over the piece that we did from the opposite side. I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to turn these ends under. How you finish this at the back obviously is up to you. This is just a method that I find works quite nice to anchor the hair quickly and easily into place. And then once you've got a couple of pins in, obviously you can adjust it to how you see fit. On the outside here, I am using darker pins. I used lighter pins so you could see what we were doing through the back, but obviously I want it to be fairly clean on the outside so you can see the full effect. I'm using a working spray, but when you finish, you'll definitely want to use a finishing spray, and that is your firmer spray, because once these looks were in place, they were in place. You wanted them to stay for the day. You wanted to know that they weren't going to move, and you'd want that as well for anything you were doing this for, whether it's a wedding or a set or a shoot. It really is something you just want to hold in place. Okay. Through the side here, if I want this back further, if I want it falling forward, that's fine. If I want it back further, I'm going to use my pins and I'm going to use them sideways. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in to my shape sideways and sliding my pin. So basically it gets hidden, but it just holds that hair in place. I'm going to do the same with that little bit because the hair grows a little lower here. And so again, just pull it up and anchor it back. Another thing as well, you'll find in the nape of the neck, if you've got shorter hair in this area or in the side, you can, if it's only little areas, twist this first before you add your pin. What that'll do is it'll close the hair together without affecting the rest of the shape. It'll mean you can just put your pin in and hide that out of the way. So just spend a couple of minutes looking at your shape, seeing how it sits, how it's blending through. And then last spray and your look's complete. Very nice, very simple, very quick way to do a twist on the hair. No setting. We did this from nothing, and we did that on purpose so you can see it's easy to do once you get the hang. The biggest thing here is if we can do something this quickly, then spend your time on making sure your back combing is correct, make sure that you're brushing, smooth that hair out so that it looks right, and then that pinning in the back, make sure that you cross pin and you really anchor that hair into place, and then you know it's going to hold its shape quite easily. So there we have our first little French twist. We were doing some variations on this, and it's worth looking at because you can see how you can build up the curls and that sort of thing within these shapes. But I hope you enjoy it. This is our little 60s French twist. Great for the office or just great for going out for cocktails.